Everyone, welcome. Well, actually, it's 7:02, and I think we will get started. So I'm Pam Kingsley. I am the chair of the CAC. I want to welcome you tonight. This is our basically workshop series. It takes the town on issues of that affect our local environment. And I am going to throw it over to Lorraine Mirabella, who is going to be introducing our speakers tonight. And what our intent is they will give their presentations. And then when they are done, we will open it up to questions. And then I just ask everyone, please, to mute yourselves. When we get to the point of questions, you can either raise your hand or you can put questions into the chat, and we'll make sure that everyone who has a question ends up being able to ask that question. So anyway, I will throw it over to Lorraine and we will get started. So thank you all for coming.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. We're so happy tonight to have Michelle Gluck from Cornell Cooperative Extension. She is the Environment and Energy Resource Educator, and she's also on the town's Climate Smart Task Force. We're very happy to have her speak tonight on recycling and single-use plastics and anything else she wishes to talk about. Kerry Russell is here from Dutchess County. She's the recycling educator. And Kerry, feel free to impart your knowledge to us as you please. Okay, Michelle.
All right, great. Thank you so much. We're both happy to be here tonight. It's a great opportunity. I have a presentation, so I will share that and shortly, but I just want to say if there's any burning questions, if you want me to pause, I can pause. And if there's a quick question, but definitely we'll have more thorough, more time for questions and a discussion at the end as well. And Carrie is here. She's the recycling expert, definitely. Also expert on single-use plastics, but she knows way more about recycling than I. So I'm so happy you can join us, Carrie.
Good team.
All right, I will share my screen and get started. Okay, sorry. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we're good.
Great. Okay. Hold on, sorry. On my screen, it's just, whoa. Sorry. Hang on, sorry about this. Let me just have a minute. My computer's being a little finicky.
Yeah, we had you and we lost you, I think.
All right. Just gonna try it a different way. It'll work. Okay. Now I lost Zoom. Found you guys again. Okay. This should work now. Am I back?
Yep, you're back.
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sorry about that. All right. So I'll be speaking on the topic of single-use plastics pollution. So last year, well, I guess in fall of 2019, we launched a single-use plastic pollution prevention campaign for Dutchess County. And that's how Carrie and I really started kind of collaborating more closely on single-use plastics with a couple other partners. but that was a year-long campaign. Those of you who are CAC members may have, attended our roundtable for 2020, which I spoke at about that campaign effort, and it was a zero waste event. So that campaign itself, I guess, is technically over, but it's never really over, right? So we're still continuing the education. A lot of the information I'm sharing tonight, came out of that campaign effort. And there's just so much to this topic of single-use plastic pollution and prevention and solutions. Yeah, you'll see. But it's all about just, becoming educated, becoming more aware, and then, making change from that and implementing actions, whether it's at an individual level, community level, or bigger. Okay, so tonight, we don't have a ton of time, but we're really just going to talk about, what are single-use plastics, what's the issue, what are the challenges, and then those solutions, right, from the other angle. So single-use plastics, you can see on the screen here. I also have some examples next to me that I can share as, part of discussion. But there are plastics that are literally designed with the intention to be thrown away after a single use. So some examples are plastic bags, different types of film plastics, plastic cutlery, that comes with takeout, those takeout containers themselves, plastic water bottles, coffee mugs, the lids, straws. You get the idea. I'm sure many of you could come up with some other examples too. So with that, these plastics are just generated at just so fast because of that they're just really intended to be used once. So it makes them extremely unsustainable. It causes a lot of stress to our waste systems, especially our recycling management, because the other reason why they're so bad, or a specific reason, is because a lot of these items, although they're plastic, they, a user might think they can be recycled when in fact they can't. So they end up being wish cycled, which really, it contaminates all those materials that actually can be recycled. So we'll get into wish cycling a little bit, but it's as if you, you think that a plastic fork can be recycled because it's plastic, and you throw it in your recycling bin. Yeah, and then a lot of these items, I'll get into it more, but sometimes they, don't even make it into the proper waste receptacle. So then they end up as pollutants out in the environment. So this is just an example of plastics, single-use plastics that may end up in a recycling facility when in fact they're not supposed to be there. So especially film plastics that can happen with, and plastic bags, and they jam up the equipment. So this image here is actually, I think it's from Okra, or I forget what recycling facility, but it's from a recycling facility in New York State. And it's part of the Recycle Right campaign, which is a great educational initiative just to build awareness about waste management and sustainable solutions. And just to improve our recycling system. So yeah, so if we think a plastic bag is recyclable, we put it in our recycling with all of our other items, then sometimes it ends up here, and then staff literally have to take it off of the equipment. Big issue is that these items, just because there's just so much out there, we can't manage it all, right? We're kind of drowning in plastic. But these items can end up as litter on land. And what happens to, items on land, they end up entering a tributary as litter and then end up entering our oceans. So this image this is all plastic gathering in the ocean. And the problem with that is there's wildlife, aquatic marine wildlife in the ocean that ends up either entangling in plastics or ends up, mistaking plastic bag for, food. And then also with single-use plastics, I didn't have anything right near me, but something like, film plastics, when they're out there in the elements, they end up breaking down into smaller and smaller pieces. And then they become what we call microplastic. So then wildlife and even humans too, we end up ingesting these plastics even as microplastic. And as you can imagine, those are even harder to clean up, right? Because they're so small, those pieces. So that's what's happening out there right now. There's all this plastic collecting, breaking down, and it never really goes away. So that's the main thing to consider. It's harmful to wildlife, it's harmful to us, and once it's out there, it's very difficult to clean up. The plastic that can be recycled, you're trying, but there's a lot out there that even is not recyclable. So it's getting sent to landfill or it's ending up out there as litter. And I just wanted to show you a visual of the 5 main locations globally in our oceans where plastic ends up collecting. It originates on land, obviously with humans using it, makes its way, however it does, out into the ocean. And then just because of, wind and wave patterns and ocean movement, it ends up collecting. And I'm sure many of you have heard of, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch or Garbage Islands. Okay, so moving on, I just wanted to share some single-use plastic facts with you. And I'll just read through these, but they're, some of them I knew, and, some of them I'm sure are more common than others, but they're pretty awing. So at best, less than 1/3 of all plastic bottles will be recycled. And there are 1 million single-use plastic bottles purchased globally every minute. So we know that, for example, a plastic water bottle can be recycled, right? So that's an example of a single-use plastic item that can be recycled, but only 1/3 of them actually are that are used. Another fact is Americans use more than 500 million plastic straws each day, and plastic straws generally, and Carrie can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're not recyclable. And then approximately 25 billion polystyrene, so essentially styrofoam cups are used per year. On average, 9% of all plastics are recycled. However, so that seems kind of low, right? But that's from the EPA. 9% of all plastics are recycled. However, there are specific plastics that have a higher rate of recycling. So I don't know the actual term, but the acronym is PET, bottles and jars. So that's the same, that type of plastic is PET. That's what a plastic, or soda bottle are made of. So they do have like a higher recycling rate than other plastics. So within plastics, some are more recycled than others. Plastic bags are the most common synthetic item found in the stomachs of sea turtles, or bellies of whales that are found washed up on shore. And again, I mentioned this before, but they the bags also, as do other plastics, contribute to microplastics pollution as they're breaking down in the environment. The other thing with plastics is they clog up storm drains, get stuck in trees, and just are a nuisance. Up to 13 million metric tons of plastics enter the ocean each year. By 2030, it is predicted that there will be 1 pound of plastics for every 3 pounds of fish. And by 2050, it's estimated there will be more plastic in weight in our oceans than fish. All right. So I also wanted, so beyond all that, there is a clear linkage of single-use plastics and plastics usage in general to climate change. And that is because plastics are derived, sorry about that. It's my dog trying to join us. So that's because plastic is derived from fossil fuels. So it's a petroleum byproduct of the oil and gas industry. So we should always keep that in mind. And, we all know that there are a lot of beneficial uses to plastics and needs, but this is all about kind of getting away from the plastics that we can, and these especially these single-use plastics, right? Yeah, so approximately 8 to 10% of our total oil supply goes to making plastics, and that's 12 million barrels of oil a year. Well, an example is that 12 million barrels of oil a year are used to manufacture 30 million plastic bags that are used on average annually by Americans. So that's just an example of that. Yeah, so with that said, it's important to recognize that plastic pollution isn't just like a waste management problem, but additionally, there's overproduction of these plastics that contributes to an increased usage of fossil fuels and greenhouse gas emissions during like the whole process of production and transportation and disposal. So that's just in addition to like that existing issue of and the burden of managing these plastics at end of life. All right. Any questions or comments so far before I move on? No, that might have been a lot. All right. Okay, so I'll move into like the more positive things now. But so what do we do about it, right? So, one major focus is national, state, and local legislation.
Excuse me, I had a question.
Yes.
With the plastic bags, now that everything has gone to paper bags in the stores, I mean, there's still some stores that have plastic bags. So there used to be these disposal places in stores where you could put the plastic bags. But now that most everything has gone to paper, what do you do with those plastic bags that you do get?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I take my guidance on that from the DEC, from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, staff. So from my understanding, there, like grocery stores, those locations that were collecting film plastics and like plastic bags still are required to do so. But you're saying that you're finding that they're not, though they're being removed?
Correct.
Yeah, so I believe you're actually supposed to contact, I should have had this available, but there is an email contact for the DEC where you can report that essentially
Okay.
to them. And maybe as a follow-up, I can share that.
Can you possibly put that in the chat?
Yeah.
I'll
Or
take
Carrie,
a look. Yep.
That'd be great. Thanks, Carrie.
Yep.
Because
Um,
I guess the thing is, these stores, like for instance, Rite Aid in my neighborhood, they used to have a container. Now they do all paper. So I guess they feel like it's not necessary anymore.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you know, the plastic that comes around certain items that you buy, like toilet paper,
Those film plastics.
those
Yep.
film plastics, can
Mhm.
they go into one of those plastic bag containers? If I could find a plastic bag container.
Yes, they can, as long as they're clean. So you wouldn't want to put, say, a empty mulch bag in one of those containers because that has residue left on it. So as long as it was clean, and I do know that with COVID in the beginning, so a year ago, stores were pulling them. But I will find and put it in the chat this evening, the contact for DEC to report that. I know everybody's just kind of been strained as far as manpower, but they still do want to know, so I'll get that to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Camille, Adams still takes those plastic bags. I don't know if you're aware of that. They
Oh,
have
no, that's great.
containers at both entrances. They're sort of tucked away, but they're these 3-4 foot high with this hole in the middle for you to put plastic bags.
Mhm.
They never did away with them.
Oh,
Stop and Shop
great.
has that as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
Which one?
Stop and Shop has it,
Okay.
and I agree. This is one of the most confusing parts: is what can you recycle at home and what has to go. Like the
Yeah.
Amazon packages. That I think is. I mean, I know I went to the website of my garbage collection company to look for this.
Mm-hmm.
The list was exhaustive. It's really hard to know what you can put where.
Yeah, and I mean it's something that that needs to be worked on, is the accessibility and kind of the information sharing around it. And a lot of it is very localized. A lot of it, and there's changes, you know, like we are, I would say, under a transition with this right now with our whole recycling, how we are recycling kind of being reinvented and like figured out right now. So, but as far as those, you know, that specific example of the film plastics, like that's just one example where we know you know, they're supposed to be accepted at locations. You know, it's up to us right now to be collecting them and bringing them. But yeah, even here tonight, it's nice to have that confirmation. Like you know, yes, I've seen that in Adams. Yes, I've seen it still in ShopRite. You know, so that's helpful. But then we do know the DEC wants to know when you're not seeing those bins in a place where you used to be seeing them. But I imagine kind of like hopefully centralized a website where we can, at least in our county, you know, get as localized as we can with this information about recycling.
That would be great.
Yeah, and I do have a resource. I have some community education resources later on in my presentation, and one of them is something that Carrie had put together. So I think it'll be good. Good to see. But that was a great question, Camille. I'm glad you asked that. All right, so there's the, you know, legislation, community education and action, right? And then also just knowing just us kind of like a mantra, I guess, the materials management hierarchy as we go forward. So that is, you know, I'm sure all of us know reduce, reuse, recycle, right? I think you all grew up with that. So sometimes we add more to those 3 R's, but there's now, you know, refuse, reduce, reuse, even sometimes repurpose, recycle, or instead of repurpose, you know, there's rot, so composting, right? But at least for refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, it's really a hierarchy. We really want to just be avoiding as much as we can as far as usage of plastics. That also speaks to producers, right? They kind of follow demand of consumers. So that does a lot. So, and then reducing, like maybe you do have certain needs and, especially right now, it's hard, you can't be too hard on yourself, but like reduce your usage as much as you can, reuse what you can, and then recycle what you can. Recycling is really like your last resort. I chose this specific icon because I'm a big believer in composting as well. So yeah, this one has rot as just another means of sustainable materials management and composting what items can go there, because then it's all about diverting things from ending up in landfill, right? Okay, so for legislation, what we just talked about the bags, that's very relevant to the New York State bag waste reduction law. So that law really, I think when it was delayed a bit last year, so it just recently went into effect. Right, Carrie?
The plastic
New York
bag,
State. Yep.
the New York State plastic bag ban was supposed to go into effect January 1st, 2020, then went to March 1st, 2020, and we all know what followed after. It is still in effect.
Yep.
And now, I know in the beginning, stores were reverting and using plastic again, but they have since moved forward and are now going towards the paper bag, with the exception of eateries and
right.
But yeah, March 1st is when the official New York State was going to crack down on that.
Of 2020.
2020, yeah.
Yeah. But it did get delayed, but it was because of a lawsuit, not just COVID. But right now, yeah, it is in effect. There are exemptions, so you might still see certain plastic bags out there, which is why it's also important to just not say, okay, there's a law about it, I'll just, step back. There's still kind of film plastics out there that are exempt, that are being used. Certain businesses are exempt. So I can share this presentation, and if you want to learn more about the specifics of the law, you can visit the link to that. And it's always good to share this, especially if there's CAC members here. This is a great information about this law is great to just share widely. The more people are aware of it, then we can encourage everyone to like bring your own bag and know why it's important, so people aren't like, oh, this is annoying, I love plastic bags, so yeah. But that's our New York State law. Dutchess County actually had passed a law preceding this New York State law for plastic bags. There's the Plastic Free Hudson River Act, which was passed in Troy, I think in 2019. I'm not like really well versed in the specifics, but basically it was passed to reduce single-use plastics, the availability of single-use plastics like in restaurants or on demand. So customers have to actually ask for a straw or ask for a plastic fork when they, enter an eatery. Right now, no one's entering eateries, but then there's the Ulster County Skip the Straw law, which is similar. So in our neighboring county, they passed a law where same thing, straws, cutlery, single-use items can't just be provided out there on a counter. Customers have to ask for them. And, that's a great model, and it's something to really consider. you know, in other local municipalities or counties, because I also kind of have a little insight into this. I know when I ran a business focus group, they actually loved that idea because it saves a restaurant, or it saves, you know, a store money by not having to, as many people taking an item because they have to buy them. And then there's the New York State polystyrene ban, which goes into effect in 2022. So that will actually ban, you know, polystyrene. I don't actually have an example, I don't think. But you know, styrofoam, takeout containers or cups, and those things. So that's another thing to be, you know, sharing information about and preparing for. Really good. And then at a federal level, there is the Break Free from Plastic Act. And I think that was introduced into Congress in February of 2020. You know, so that is something to keep an eye on as well. And similar to like the Ulster County Skip the Straw law, it would be, you know, preventing single-use plastics usage and distribution. Well, okay. Yeah, and then Carrie, do you have any others that I may have missed? I feel like that was just an example of what we have going on right now as far as legislation.
Right. I know there will be some more focus groups for the polystyrene ban coming up. They're just starting their networking, and so that's something you might want to stay tuned to if you click on that link that Michelle had there for the polystyrene.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that one. That's huge for New York State. Dutchess County has a polystyrene ban. It does have exemptions, and this New York State ban actually is much stricter how it's written as of now. It has not gone to be passed or gone to the Senate or that yet, has it, Michelle?
The New York State?
Yeah.
Or I
the New York
thought
State.
I thought it did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty
Oh.
sure, yeah.
I get confused.
Yeah, I know, I do too. It's tedious to read through, like, yeah. And know if it actually passed. And I did have the Dutchess County polystyrene law here, but I think I may have accidentally deleted it, but I'll add it to this list too.
So I think we have a question from one of our attendees here from
Okay.
Rebecca Wolf. Who
Yes.
says, hi, I'm visiting from Columbia County, where I'm on the city council in Hudson, New York. I'm preparing to introduce a resolution banning local restaurants from using single-use plastic for takeout containers. Do you have any advice?
Yeah. Wow. Great. Thank you for being here, Rebecca. And that's extremely exciting. I mean, you know, we could talk probably for a while about that as far as advice. So
yeah, anything you want to tell me.
Yeah, so I ran as part of our Dutchess single-use plastic pollution prevention campaign, I ran focus groups for local businesses. This is an extremely sensitive time. It still is, right? It was and still is for especially our local businesses and restaurants. So we originally wanted it to be a huge like a business workshop, but we really made it small. We made it just a 1 hour focus group, had like, I think 6 attendees representing different food service establishments. So like there's a lot. There's, you know, coffee shops, caterers, breweries, restaurants, you know, and we actually had a good representation of all the, you know, subsectors food service establishment. So I'm happy to share kind of like some insights from that with you. If you can put your contact information in the chat.
Yep.
And I would just say, like, in our focus groups, I know it was a small, group, but they were really appreciative to be part of the conversation. So I think as much as you can to be engaging with, businesses that would be affected by this from the beginning, and like working with them, and also sharing kind of the pros of it and the benefits.
Mhm.
And then, because they just are going to need to make sure that their customers are still satisfied and still are able to, take advantage of what they're providing.
Mhm.
And they need to have like cost-effective alternatives, right? So, and they
Yeah.
want to know that their customers are like on board and
Right.
supportive. So, but yeah, anyway, I'd be happy to share more, and then connect you with others, experts, I guess, on this topic.
Fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Sure.
Michelle, I did just take a quick look. You were correct. The polystyrene ban was adopted and will be into law January 1st, 2022.
Good. Thanks, Carrie. I like being correct. Something happens. Okay. All right. Great stuff on the legislation. So moving on to community education. Okay, so I'm sharing here a couple links and examples of community education and where you can get more information. So there is the New York State DEC Recycle Right campaign that you saw at least one image from earlier. So that's an effort to really just share quick graphics and social media posts that just give you just instant information and tips for how to recycle better, I guess, right? Or how to reduce single-use plastics, or reduce your environmental impact as far as waste management. NYSAR is New York State Association of Reduce, Reuse, Recycle. They have a lot of educational information and support on their website. They actually are now involved in the Recycle Right campaign. So they're just a good entity to be aware of, as is New York State Pollution Prevention Institute. And sometimes they have community grants. So as for those of you in attendance who are CAC members, you could possibly look there. Or, if you know of a business in your community that is interested in this topic, they do offer kind of technical guidance for businesses. So they're good to know about. Then I added these two remaining bullets are links to, I labeled it as Know Your Transfer Station. That's just another tip to and Susan, you kind of referred to this earlier, that you want to know everything. And it sounds like you also did that investigative research yourself of, your specific hauler, and it's hard, right, to get that accurate information, but we really do need to know either your local transfer station, what they're accepting, or your hauler to really get it right. Because and this is what Carrie can definitely speak to better than me, is kind of how different it is depending on where you are located. And then, Carrie, I also put the link to the recycling encyclopedia. So I could visit it if you want to
Sure.
describe it more, because I think that's pretty much it. I see there's some chats going on. So that's the community education. And then just I wanted to also mention, I have it here, but I know we're on Zoom, but as part of our Dutchess County Single-Use Plastic Pollution Prevention campaign, we did create a community display board about single-use plastics that is available for CACs to borrow for different tabling events. So I can hold it up at the end or something, but
If we ever
Just-
get back to tabling again, that'll be.
if yeah,
It'll be a
just so you
grand
know,
thing.
it's safe and sound. I have it like at my house because I do some when I don't have a presentation, sometimes I've done just like set it up behind me and talked through it for groups. So it is getting used right now. But yeah, CACs can still borrow that if there's any outdoor events this spring or or summer.
Well, hopefully there will be.
Yeah.
So I don't know, are you at the end of your presentation?
Yeah,
Should
I'm
we-
at the end, so it's basically
Okay.
thank you and questions, but I will
So-
also pull up, some of that recycling, the webpage if we want to
Okay.
share that. But yeah, that's all I have. So I do want to
Okay.
leave
Now, in
time
the
for
meantime,
discussion.
I
and
can't
questions.
quite see everybody, but does anybody have any questions? I can't sort of see everyone all at once, but if you do, put yourself back on video and raise a hand, or if you want to put something in the chat for a question to be asked.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing my screen of the presentation just so we can all see each other better. But I can start sharing it if we want to
Okay,
visit one of the web pages.
okay. Oh, great, there's everybody. All right.
Yeah.
Now, okay. Chris, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Well, I was just thinking about the number of bags per year, and I thought the number was, like 50x too small. So maybe I looked at it wrong. But anyway, when I just looked it up, I see 100 billion bags US per year, and that corresponds.
What did I write?
That corresponds.
Okay.
That corresponds to about 300 bags per US person.
Oh, good Lord.
So I think that's more like what I think it is, actually. Whereas I think you had
What did I say?
You had written 30 million or something. That might be per day or something, but anyway, the number is vast. And I think, I think it's
Yeah.
something like 100 billion makes sense to me.
I think I have the New York State stat on that too.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, New Yorkers use more than 23 billion plastic bags a year. So you're right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then I was just thinking about the 13 million metric tons, and that gives us about 74 pounds per US person. So I'm just trying to think about it in personal terms.
No, that's excellent.
And so
To break it down like that.
300 bags per year, that's appalling. And then, like 75 pounds is actually smaller than I would have thought, but
Well, they're pretty lightweight, I guess.
Yeah,
Right,
that's the
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
75 pounds of plastic, when you're thinking about plastic bags, that's a lot.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
lot.
that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then think of like the damage that they cause, like these bags, like when they're out there in the ocean, like and wrapping around, animals, or they're ingesting it. So even if it's lightweight, it can still have a big impact too.
And just independent of this, the weight of the CO2 we all produce is astonishing. I mean, I have it in another part of this room here because I've been looking up a lot of these things, but it's an amazing, the weight of it. I mean, you don't think of it in weight terms, but it's astonishing how much CO2 our footprint is, just weight, not anything else. So,
Mhm.
so all these things are just have to get totally changed if people are going to be around in
We're
100
gonna
years.
survive.
Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely.
70
And
pounds.
Andrew,
Yeah.
did you have a question?
A question, comment.
Mhm.
Did any of you see the article in the New York Times, recycling in America is a mess, a new bill could clean it up? And the bill is being drafted by New York state legislators, Senator Todd Kaminsky and Steve Englebright. and they've drafted a recycling bill that basically, in a nutshell, says if you, the manufacturer, are going to package your stuff in plastic, then you have to pay to have that done. I'm just wondering if you're working with them, and is that moving forward?
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's like extended producer responsibility, is what you're talking about. And so like myself personally, like I'm right now, I'm not specifically working on that, but as it emerges, there could be opportunities to, educate about that as it comes out. I don't know, Carrie, are you involved
Yeah,
at all?
I mean, the only program that I know of is the TerraCycle, where they have many programs for all of their items to take back. That's about the only one I know for wide production of plastic goods.
Yeah. But I think what you're referring to, like, I'm glad you brought that up, because, some of the solutions we're talking about are things we can do on an individual level, but that new legislation would, like, extended producer responsibility means the responsibility is going on the producers, those manufacturers. So it is important to know, like, that they have a big responsibility here. It doesn't just fall on the individuals and residents on our end.
Because in this article, it explains that, if the law is passed where the manufacturers have to pay for this, then they also cannot just put that payment, add it to the cost of the product. So if it works, they're saying it could be a model for the United States, for other states to copy, that this is kind of a possible solution to the recycling problem, and it gets recycling back to being a money-making proposition.
And I think it would bring out more creative, problem solving and solutions.
Right.
In manufacturing, because they have the resources to investigate different technologies and yeah. But that's something to share for sure. If not everyone has read that, it's an interesting, an informative article.
Yeah, if you would like to post that link. Also, I think Michelle and Carrie, if you want to put your contact information into the chat, because I see that there's also another question comment from Hillary Hillman in the chat, which is she's from the Hudson CAC, and she's asking, do you have a resource list of providers of appropriate takeout container suppliers, biodegradable, compostable? We want to be able to make recommendations, options to restaurants and retailers. So just, I would like to make sure that you guys can connect on that.
Yes, and I would like to, I'll put a link in the chat to our Duchess SUP, Single-Use Plastic Pollution Prevention Campaign webpage, because that has a ton of resources, both just as community education, but also for businesses. And I will specifically share with you a resource that comes to mind, which is a cost comparison of different types of takeout containers, whether they're, compostable or plastic or reusable. What I was hoping for. Yeah, and I'll put my contact information as well.
Excellent, thank you guys. Now, do we have any other questions? Oh, Susan?
So it was really caught my attention about Ulster having the law for restaurants. What did you call it? Stop the straw.
Skip the straw law.
Skip the straw. So as usual, Ulster is ahead of Duchess. Like, that's nothing new. But I would like to know if there is any discussion in Duchess about, at the EMC or at the county legislature or someplace about this very doable action, because that would be amazing.
Not to the best of my knowledge, there isn't anything. However, I don't speak for the EMC. they could be very well doing it, and we'd be happy to implement. So a letter definitely would be worthwhile to
Okay.
your legislature.
I know just who to talk to.
Yeah, and I can think there likely could be some county legislators that are interested in this topic.
Uh-huh.
Definitely attend an EMC meeting, reach out to them.
Yeah, really,
I will
we
reach out
don't.
to Rebecca Edwards about this.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
yep, and
Yep.
we received, I mean, the EMC was a partner on the Duchess Sub campaign, so
Yes.
they're well aware of the importance of this.
I'm sure it's there. We, as the county workers, we won't find out about, we honestly didn't find out about the polystyrene ban until it happened. So there's some things that just kind
But
of are in the works that we don't know.
But Skip the Straw is a county law, right? A county level.
Yep.
law.
Yep.
So
And
Duchess could do something like that.
they actually they have a website that's very informative about the law.
Or the county climate smart task force could take this up. There's all kinds of places this could go.
Definitely. And as you said, just the fact that our neighbors in Ulster, I mean, there's a model to work off of too. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, do we have any other questions?
Pam, there is a hand raised from Camille.
Oh,
Yes.
all right.
Yes, hi. I was wondering about Ziploc bags. I don't know if they're recyclable at all, but does anybody know what I can do?
Yes. So for Ziploc bags, if you cut the top, the zip part off, dispose of that in your trash, then the rest, the clear, is just film plastic that can go into a bin just with your plastic grocery bag or wrapping. That can go there as long as you just have to snip off that top part.
Okay.
And then
And as
before
long
we,
as it's clean. Sorry.
Before we end, Carrie, do you want me to, I can share the encyclopedia, the recycling encyclopedia. I feel like that may be of interest.
Sure. So this is something I've just developed in the past few months. It is ever growing, and I welcome all and any items that the public wants to know about. This is just what I came up with, so we're always looking to add, but this can give you an idea. These are kind of our most frequently asked questions that come into the office. I'm working on getting it relocated on the website because it's not in the best visual area.
What's a good, what should I click? Anyone?
Anything.
What do you want me to
Coffee
click
pot.
on?
You can do coffee pods. You know that
Coffee pod.
often people think that they're recyclable when they're not.
Okay, so it's different tips on items. Let's see. Batteries. So this is definitely something to share with others and, to post on maybe your CAC website. Or
This
Facebook
is a
page.
great resource, absolutely. Once we get our new homepage up, we've been discussing that links like this will be really valuable.
Great. And like I said, if anything comes up, if you can think of something else that's not on the list, please email me. I'd love to add to it. It's very hard with recycling because so many things are plastic, but like Michelle said, so much of it is really just single use and not actually recyclable. And in fact, when it is put into recycling, it contaminates the load. And then the entire load winds up in the trash.
Yeah,
So we're trying to give people kind of a scope to work with. A lot of times I tell people in today's markets, we really need to go back to the basics. When we first started recycling. And like Michelle was explaining, it's the wish cycling that people intend to do the very good things, but the items just are not recyclable, such as coffee pods.
Well said, Carrie. and well done with this recycling encyclopedia. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So unless anybody has any other questions, and if anybody sees any questions that I do not see,
Yeah, and I copied the chat so I can I have the contact information for anyone that asks. I think I can respond to some things there.
Question.
Mhm.
Carrie, you mentioned tetracycle.
Yes.
I only recently, from using Brita filters, and I joined Brita online, and they offered me a free packaging when you get so much weight of old filters, you could mail it to them free. So
Right.
that's good for Brita. What other type products does tetracycle take back?
So there has to be, I would say, at least 50 items. Some are very brand specific.
Mhm.
One that I tried working to get into the schools, but it was always tapped out. So they couldn't receive anymore was like candy wrappers or the granola bar wrappers. I wanted to get one of those receptacles into the schools, but they always are filled up. But there's loads of items there. And like I said, some are the type, some are brand specific. I know even the air freshener, the Febreze, those ones, that type of thing is on there. Things that wouldn't ordinarily have a home.
On that, is it TerraCycle? Is that what you're talking about? TerraCycle?
Oh, sorry,
Yes.
I misspoke.
So I had told Michelle about this at some point. I was up to the Ozone store in Upper Red Hook, where they have TerraCycle, and they explained to me how it works. They get this big container, and then people pay a monthly, it's like a club, $25,
Yeah,
whatever, and you can bring your stuff, because getting the big box is like $500. It's
yeah,
really expensive.
yeah.
But they had, toothpaste tubes and I mean, everything you could imagine, but it's very expensive. I would have loved to bring something like that to some sort of central town location, but I think the cost is a
The
problem.
cost nowadays, yeah, government funding is very tight.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I know we didn't even get into the specifics of like alternatives to single-use items, but I feel like likely, I mean, with this group, reusable water bottles, like there's so much we can do and going to, stores like the Ozone, but hopefully more will become available, and then the price goes down as more as we do that. And I guess the more we substitute plastics with alternatives where we can, then we can really focus on overcoming the challenges of like the items we are still working on.
well, I think this has been great. I mean, I think this has been a great overview for us. And again, just want to, one last time, if there are any other questions before we wrap this up. I just want to, yes? Anyone? Was that you, Susan?
This is Camille.
Camille? Okay, go ahead, Camille.
Just to throw it out there, I do have an old laptop and very old cell phones that I just have a drawer that I put that all in, and I don't know what to do with it.
So you can bring those to Best Buy in Poughkeepsie. They'll take them and recycle them for you. Or you can wait until the Dutchess County Hazardous Waste electronic recycling events, and we will take them for you.
I had gone to one of those, and they did not list cell phones or laptops.
I believe they just put personal electronics, but I do work those events. I have for the past 4 years and will again this year. And I can tell you for a fact that we will take those. We can't
Oh.
list every single item because we have to fit everything on this little flyer.
Okay,
But by any means, if you do have a question about things that we accept, just give us a ring or drop me an email. But we will be taking those. And actually, while we're on the subject, we have finally scheduled our 2021 events for this year. They will be, the first one will be on May 8th with registration opening April 8th online.
That's good to know. That's always a
Thank you.
popular event.
Yes, and it became more popular
Yeah,
as we have all been shut home and cleaning out our houses.
yes,
So
exactly, exactly. Well, that's really good news. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Now, anyone else? Do we have any other questions? Right.
I'll ask one more. I work in a big school district, and it is so overwhelming to see. For lunch, there's the styrofoam trays and these forks, and they used to recycle paper, and they stopped doing it because they said they were getting too much. What
that
can
would
be
be that
done?
that would be something to bring up with the Board of Education of that district.
Okay,
As far as getting too much paper. As for the styrofoam trays, I'm happy to say, because that has been a thorn in my side for many years. This new New York State ban will include those styrofoam trays in school.
thank you.
Sure.
Kerry, we will still get packaging though from out of New York State. Let's say deliveries that have those huge styrofoam packages. Do you have any recommendation how to break them down the best way? They're all going to the landfill.
They are.
You need a saw for some of the chunks.
Actually, for you folks in Poughkeepsie, it is not going to a landfill. It's going to the incineration plant and being regenerated into electricity. But yes, I agree. They are huge. Just by cutting them up is the only thing I can suggest, just to save space for yourself in your receptacles. But yes, all of Poughkeepsie's trash, I can say with 99.9 certainty, it is all going to Sand Dock Road and being incinerated.
Yeah, and with packaging, I guess you can reuse it if you need to send out something again. But I know each of us can't stockpile this stuff that much. And it does speak to like limiting online ordering as much as you know,
Which
with
is
certain
hard.
things. But certain things, no matter what, they're going to come in a
Yeah, it's
with
hard.
styrofoam. It is very hard.
Well, anyway, I would really like to thank Carrie and Michelle. This has been a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Lorraine, for facilitating this. Really appreciate it as well. And thank everyone who has come and participated tonight. We really appreciate it, and we're going to keep going. We were going to have monthly presentations at least through June, and hope you all will join us. And I say good evening to everyone, and everyone stay safe and healthy.